Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Rezolvians, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing one part what has happened in this market and why I think we're coming out of this stock market crash event that we have been in. It's linked really to crypto, and we're going to get into that in today's episode. I'm going to assume you watched the video earlier today and you have a little bit of a backstory of what's been going on today. If you didn't, no problem. We'll get you caught up to speed a little bit in this video. But really what I want to talk about here is my personal expectations for Rezolve and some of the upcoming catalysts we have throughout the rest of this year. Like, where do I think the stock is going to be on December 31st? Why do I think this? What are the upcoming catalysts? And let me just tell you, I think we have better days ahead. So before we get into all of this information, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. If you guys want to come join us and finding and identifying, executing, investing in these smaller cap companies that are literally flying under the radar, like not Rezolve, but there's another company we invested in, put $30,000 into it, something like that. And they raised guidance on November 14th, 400% for next year. Wall Street didn't care because we were in a crash. But what happened? Friday, stock was up 46%. I see a lot of this right now. And Rezolve is included in this, where there's been good news, there's positive developments, but the stocks have not responded positively because of what has been happening in the markets, okay? And we're going to start this video off with what has been happening in the markets and why, in a nutshell, I think this crash is coming to an end. I want to make sure we're all on the same page so we can drop this whole conversation. I'm going to give you the long story short version of this because we have a lot to cover in today's episode specifically pertaining to Tesla. The broader markets. We started a 41-day government shutdown. There was uncertainty during that period. How is the AI trade doing? Are we in an AI bubble? Was the talk of the town for a couple days there. Are we in a recession? That's kind of been a dark cloud over this market for a while. And the fact of the matter is we just got clarity. We're not in a recession. Jobs report was fine. There's been uncertainty continuing because the BLS keeps delaying the data, and it looks like we're not going to get some data for October because they can't retroactively collect it, apparently. Either way, we're getting enough data. We've gotten enough earnings to show this economy is doing fine. Most notably, Walmart. Walmart raised guidance. They said things are unchanged, really, from the consumer perspective in the last quarter. That is so important because Walmart is going to be the first company that tells you when shit is bad. Like, remember this forever. If you don't walk away with anything else from this video, remember this. When Walmart is scared, you should be scared. Okay? And Walmart is not scared. Walmart said, quote, they're pretty optimistic about the holiday quarter, okay? Walmart said things are fine. The economic data we've gotten, like the jobs report, show things are fine. AI is fine, alive and well, better than expected across the board, okay? It's been some weird things with like oracles, credit default swaps. There's been some weird anomalies here and there, but AI is alive and well. Economy is alive and well. Now, why did we not have a stronger week last week with this new clarity, this uncertainty being alleviated from the AI trade, bubble fears, and economic concerns? Crypto, okay? Sorry to ruin the party for some people. The problem is in crypto. It's not the Japanese yen carry trade. When I started hearing that on Thursday, I'm like, it's possible, but typically you don't have the same crisis twice, right? You just don't tend to have the same problem twice that impacts the markets that much. Now, could that have been a factor at some point over the past week? Maybe. But it wasn't the driving factor. The driving factor is crypto. On October 10th, there was an issue with a stable coin. Okay? 400,000 traders were wiped out. They lost billions of dollars. Awesome. Great. Sucks, right? Normally, we should move past something like that. But there's so much leverage in crypto. It started a cascade event where margin calls led to margin calls, which led to liquidity drying up, mixed with the government shutdown, uncertainty around AI and the economy. It was kind of the perfect storm for crypto to have this cascading margin effect, right? Think about if everyone in the markets were tied to margin, and it's like the price of this, stock market keeps falling, more people are going to get margin called. That's going to lead to more selling. That's going to lead to more margin calls. That leads to more selling, right? The cascade waterfall or snowball effect, right? Well, as of now, Bitcoin is actually positive in the last 24 hours. Could this change? Of course, but you're at a pretty important level. You're at kind of the areas where Bitcoin started to bottom at back in April. Psychologically, you've fallen from $126,000 per coin to $84,700 per coin right now. I think there's been enough of this cascading margin call effect to have washed out the problem at this point. Bitcoin fell almost 36% exactly from high to low. I think that's enough to have washed out the margin event that we were dealing with. Now, we can get back to business as usual. But what happens during these margin-like events, these liquidations, these liquidity events is really what it is. People stop paying attention to everything else. Just, when margin calls lead to selling, that leads to more margin calls that lead to selling. It's almost like nothing else matters. Okay? So we've gotten clarity on the AI trade. We've gotten clarity on the economy. And as of Friday, it looks like the Fed's going to be cutting rates in December. This is now the perfect storm for an upside rally in markets. Even some individuals, firms like Citadel, calling for 700 on the S&P by the end of this year. Okay? Assuming the crypto situation is resolved, you are looking at an exponential rally, in my opinion, into the end of this year. One of those rallies where Wall Street just is not positioned. They're not ready for this. They don't capitalize on this, and it leads to a chase, right? A chase is one of the best rallies to be in, because just when you think it's going to stop, it has to stop, right? You get another leg, and then another leg. I've seen it time and time and again. It tends to happen towards the end of the year in most years, and I think that's about to happen again. Now, specifically for Rezolve, okay, the core premise of why I'm bullish on the stock has not changed at all. The only thing that's changed is the price of the stock. In fact, we haven't really had any new developments for Rezolve in a while. I don't think that matters. Even if we had positive developments, positive news, contract, PRs, the stock would still be where it is today, in my opinion. In this market, with a liquidity event, Wall Street is not going to care about a small cap stock saying this or doing that, right? They're just not going to care about that. Good news is there is some big catalyst coming. Dan Wagner, Rezolve CEO, has basically confirmed the company will be reporting on a quarterly basis soon. He indicates they will start sharing some of the contracts that they have gotten recently, and there will be an update to 2025 ARR coming in December. That is the big catalyst. Now, the guidance we have right now is $150 million. Let me tell you now, no company, especially Rezolve, would come out preemptively before their scheduled earnings in March and give you a miss on guidance. That makes no sense to me at all, okay? So the fact that Dan Wagner says that Rezolve will give an update to 2025 ARR, I think there's a 98% chance Rezolve comes out with $180 million, $200 million, whatever the number is, for 2025. you're not going to get a miss in ARR for 2025. Now, what date does Rezolve come out and share this? I don't know. Dan Wagner just said December. There's been some speculation about December 3rd. Maybe that's the day. Maybe it's December 15th or December 21st. I don't know exactly when the date is going to be. I have a 98% probability in my mind that in December, Rezolve is going to come out and beat their 2025 guidance. Now, do they raise guidance for 2026? I don't know. Probably not. If they do, that's great. Okay. But that is a big catalyst coming. I also think another big catalyst that not a lot of people are thinking about right now is when Rezolve comes out and says, hey, we don't have to do this, but we're going to start reporting on a quarterly basis instead of biannually. That's big. That shows a lot of credibility. That shows the company wants to be aligned with U.S. standards. The company is a UK-based company, so they only have to report legally on a biannual basis. But reporting quarterly is a big deal. Pretty much all Europe, everyone reports on a quarterly basis, right? It makes the company seem a lot more legit. Now, they just hired their auditors, their official auditors, like a month or two ago. So I think they've been in this process for a while. Now, do we get contract press releases over the next month? I don't know. Do we get any partnership news? Like Amazon would be a big one. Amazon indicated on their last earnings they are or will be at some point looking to partner with third parties for agentic e-commerce. I don't know. Could those things happen? Of course. Do we need them to happen? I don't think so. Okay. I think with the guidance raise and the confirmation of quarterly earnings report that are going to be reported starting, I believe, next year, that is plenty of a catalyst to get Rezolve moving big time in the upwards direction. Now, what we've seen on Thursday, I think, was a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're going to see throughout the rest of this year. As this market improves, as the margin call situation in crypto comes to an end, as I think it is, again, Bitcoin pretty well stabilized at this point, $84,600 currently. It's not moving too much. It's actually positive now in the last 24 hours. Just getting that pressure lifted off this market is enough to allow Rezolve to make an upside move. Now, the stock is sitting at about a $950 million market cap versus its 2026 ARR guidance of $500 million. It's trading at less than 2 times sales. From a valuation perspective, the stock could 5x and be more so in line with other AI stocks. Okay, so the stock could be a $15 stock right now, and it would be kind of in line with other price to sales ratios of other AI companies. Now, to sit here and project the stock to be $15 per share in the next 6 weeks would be a little aggressive. But from a technical perspective, once we break above around that $3.30 area, you kind of break the downtrend. Now, Rezolve is already stabilized on the downside. You've already found a base here, and you really want to start breaking out, okay? The 200-day moving average is at $3.08, and that's the first level you really want to get above. Once you get above that, the next target is $3.64. Above that is the 100-day moving average at $4.17, and above that is the 50-day moving average at $4.98. Once you break that, then you could start to make a run towards your most, recent high of $8.45. Now, we need some news. Once we get the 2025 ARR, once the company shows they're actually not just setting targets, but, achieving those targets and, beating those targets, that's when the stock makes an even larger move. So I think as the markets recover over the next week or two before we get the 2025 ARR, Rezolve is going to find itself back into the $4 range. I believe over the next week or two, Rezolve is going to find itself between $4.20 and $5 per share. Okay, between these moving averages, you'll probably find another base here. You'll probably find support around this trend line again, right? The trend line that was very well respected from the low of $1.07. You kind of rode this trend line, broke out again. You kind of found this as support in here, and then the markets just drag the stock lower. Okay, I think you're going to find yourself in this range, and then that 2025 ARR guidance comes out, target comes out, where they hit for 2025, and it's going to be 98% chance, in my opinion. That's where you get the final 2 or 3 week rally of this year that could land the stock anywhere between $7 and $10 per share. Now, following that guidance update for 2025, you're probably going to get price targets that are raised on the stock. So I can see the stock exiting this year between $8 and $10 per share. Now, things get exciting next year as the company starts reporting on a quarterly basis. In my opinion, again, that's what Dan Wagner kind of said on X when he responded to a comment. He said, yes, sir. The individual said, start sharing PRs, report on a quarterly basis, and update ARR. And he said yes to that, presumably all three. So, yeah, once those things start to happen, once we get into 2026, wouldn't be shocked if there's a partnership with Amazon. I'm not going to be shocked when Rezolve beats the numbers and starts doing what they've said. And at that point, I think you get closer to a market multiple on Rezolve, right? 10 times sales, something like that would be a $5 billion company. That's roughly a 5x from here. That puts the stock at $15 per share at some point next year. But things could get even crazier to the upside with the right news, like an Amazon partnership or an outsized large contract. Okay, not to mention, Wall Street doesn't even really know of this company yet. And, just to get some bigger investors in Rezolve is going to be big. As I've talked about before, Rezolve has unusually low dollar volume. Okay, you only had 14.5 million shares that traded hands on Friday. Assuming the low of the day was $2.84, the high of the day was $3.18. The stock for most of the day was around $3 per share. So let's use that. That's only $43.5 million worth of volume. Something like BBAI or Tempest or Nebius or SoundHound or name the AI stock, they're doing $500 million to $2 billion worth of dollar volume on a daily basis. Once you get some volume coming into the stock, the upside can be dramatic, okay? This can be a highly volatile stock to the upside as well, not just the downside. And I think a lot of people forget that. What I'll also point out is something I've talked about for days now on this channel. On October 21st, the short interest was 11%. It is now 4.37%. It appeared to me that whoever was short in Rezolve, one does not want to be short in Rezolve anymore, but it wouldn't surprise me if they already have a heads up on what 2025 ARR is going to look like. If they kind of already know, right? Citadel owns 7% of shares. They're a major market maker. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a round table dinner that took place in Rezolve and someone was like, hey, you probably want to cover on your Rezolve short position, right? You do not, this is very abnormal, and I really can't stress that enough. Short interest does not typically fall 70% in a stock during a market crash. Very abnormal. Does short interest go from 11% to 4.3% during a crash? Very, very abnormal. I don't know if I've seen anything like this before. And when you get unusual things happening like this, it tends to mean somebody knows something, as I've found pretty standard, right? When you get weird things happening, usually Wall Street, they know exactly what they're doing. Just my thoughts around the stock. I think it's a massive opportunity where we are today with Rezolve. For the individuals that see it that way, I think are going to be rewarded for it. Individuals that, sold it for a loss are going to be looking back at the stock as it moves higher and probably FOMOing back in, to be honest. I think the story is going to look really good heading into next year, and I think the story will develop next year as the company meets and beats their prior targets. I think Rezolve actually has a personal company goal of $1 billion in ARR next year. I think the company wants to beat their target by 100%. And while that's a lofty goal, it's not impossible by any means. The market size for agentic commerce is massive. It's every company that sells anything online. You're talking trillions of dollars, okay? Let alone their other business ventures that they are pursuing as well. So these are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I think the upside, it could get really crazy next year, especially if they're hitting $1 billion in ARR. You could see this company at a $10 to $20 billion market cap. Okay, which puts the stock $60 on the high side, $30+ on the low side. And these are targets that really haven't changed because nothing has changed with the business. Like I was saying these kind of things when the stock was $8, when the stock was $2. Like nothing has changed with that. My confidence has grown that something is going to happen soon as short interest has fallen, as Dan Wagner has confirmed that they will be reporting on a quarterly basis, as they will be giving an update to ARR, but nothing has actually changed yet. Okay, so you're still have an opportunity to get in my personal opinion. I'm not a financial advisor, not a financial planner. Come to your own conclusions, obviously. If you guys want to come join the trading community, check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. Do me a quick favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel on your way out if you have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. I will see you in the next one.